All right. Well, earlier this morning, Israeli Defense Forces announcing their drones took out a Hezbollah cell after intercepting anti-tank missiles coming from Lebanon.
And as Israel fights a two-front war against the Iranian-backed terror groups, U.S. lawmakers work to fund their efforts. But our next guest argues that aid shouldn't be tied in with money going to Ukraine.
The senator from Kansas, Roger Marshall, joins us now. Senator, thank you for being here. So how do you, if the White House wants them to be tied together, and what do Senate Democrats want, and how could you force separate votes?
Well, look, we're in the process of forcing a separate vote through some parliamentary procedures, but Americans need to understand why we need to separate this. Israel will most likely have three fronts within the next 10 days. They've already proven the Iranian puppets can send missiles from Syria, from Yemen already. So they need these weapons yesterday to protect themselves. If the president lumps us together with the Ukraine funding, it's going to take months. What Iran needs to hear, Hamas and all the terrorists need to hear, is an unequivocal, unhesitant voice from the United States that we are standing beside Israel no matter what. So we've got to get this funding done separately. Take the Ukraine war on the other hand. Ukraine is in a stalemate. It's a 7, 9, 10-year war. 200,000 people have already died there. That needs to be debated separately. We need to be focused on peace, some type of a peace treaty in Ukraine, but we need to stand beside the people of Israel as they take on this Hamas army of terror. This isn't a fight just for the people of Israel. This is a fight for the future of humankind.
Senator, it's really heartening to hear people in Congress now talking about peace and bringing about peace negotiations. As you know, the Biden administration has thwarted other efforts that other countries have done to bring about peace in the Ukraine and Russia situation. So is there an appetite? Is there a growing number of senators like yourself who see the answer to Ukraine as a peace negotiation?
No, I think so. I think we need to realize, again, that there's a stalemate there, that this is a 10-year war. We're going to spend $100 billion a year there. But again, I point out 200,000 Ukrainians and Russians have died already, 500,000 casualties. This will be Afghanistan all over again as far as this long war. I just don't see that moving anywhere. I'm still concerned about the corruption in Ukraine. Every week we learn about more corruption in Ukraine right now. The political class wants this war, but the rank and file people are tired of sending their young adults to die.
Yes.
And they're having to grab people off the street. So that's a problem right now for Ukraine, just this war of attrition.
Senator, I heard your first answer say that you need to send a message that the United States stands by Israel no matter what. And you also made a prediction within the next 10 days, Israel would have a war on their hands coming from three fronts. How do you see the U.S.'s involvement? Here we're talking about a financial involvement. There's obviously concern about a broader regional war. When you say no matter what, how far does that go for the United States?
Yeah, I don't think we can put any limits on it. I think that these terrorists need to know that this is a battle for mankind. It's not just a battle for the people of Israel. We will do whatever it takes to stop terrorism. And certainly we need the administration to call out the head of the snake, Iran, and make them understand that every time one of their proxies launches another attack, that we will fight you eye for eye, tooth for tooth. Already 20 attacks on Americans, and there's really been a minimalist response, certainly nothing that would warrant deterrence. I don't know what this president is waiting on. He's trying to tame a tiger by petting it and turning it into a cat. That's not going to happen with Iran. We've learned that being a pacifist with Iran is not going to work.
But just to draw I'm just connecting the dots here. So your prediction or your estimation, again, the war expanding within 10 days, the United States, in your estimation, unfettered commitment to Israel. Do you expect this then to be a war where United States troops are involved in the Middle East?
I do not expect any boots on the ground. I have full faith that if we equip Israel properly, they can take care of the war in Gaza, hold off Hezbollah in the north, do what they need to do there. But all these other proxies that are shooting long-range missiles, at one of our greatest, staunchest allies, Israel's, those need to be silenced. Anytime those missiles are coming from those other locations, they need to be silenced. And we need to do something probably in the state of Iran as well, in the nation of Iran, that they need to hear the message loud and clear. Look, Iran is a bully. We're going to have to hit them really hard right between the eyes and make sure that they understand. Eye for eye, tooth for tooth. You hurt one of us, we're going to kill 10 of yours. It's that. I'm sorry. I remind what President Eisenhower said, that I hate war. The horrors of war is only a soldier who's lived it can. I hate war. It's going to be brutal. It's going to be ugly, but we have to win the message war. We have to stand beside the people of Israel. Do not let Iran win this message war. China and Russia are going to be building that message right behind them. We have to win this message war as well.
Senator, do you have any idea if the Biden administration has now said, okay, dumb idea on, trying to do this Iran deal, and we're going to not do this anymore? Or, I mean, how do you pursue both things at the same time?
Well, it's crickets, right? We're just crickets out of the White House. What Joe Biden has given us is war through weakness. Eisenhower, Reagan gave us peace through strength. Joe Biden gives us war through weakness. So because of his horrible reputation that no one respects him, Iran doesn't think that he has a red line. Meanwhile, Joe Biden is empowering them to develop nuclear weapons. It makes no sense. Not only should we stop their nuclear development, but we need to supply Israel. We need to do the mission with Israel if Iran actually gets to that point, and they're breathtakingly close to having nuclear warheads. Can you imagine if Iran had an active nuclear warhead program right now, what this war would look like?
It'd be a whole lot different. Senator, thank you for your time this morning. We appreciate it.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.